passed on all we know. A 1,000 generations live in you now. But this is your fight.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Film Optix, and today we're going to be reviewing Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. My name is Christian, and as always I'm joined by Devin. How are you doing today, buddy? It's a great day, man. We just got back from watching The Rise of Skywalker. We made it through the week without any spoilers. Let's
for the most part.
Yeah, honestly, for the most part, because as I was watching the movie, I found out a few small little things that I noticed I glimpsed throughout the week, and I didn't realize those were spoilers or if they weren't. But anyway, so the way this is going to work, this is going to be our spoiler-heavy review, and we're also have a non-spoiler review for you guys, so you can check that out. We're just doing the spoiler-heavy review first. So let's just get into it, man. So this is the end of the Skywalker saga. And before we begin our review today, let me read our synopsis here. So the synopsis reads: the surviving resistance faces of the First Order once more as Rey, Finn, and Poe Dameron journey continues. With the power and knowledge of generations behind them, the final battle commences. Release date technically comes out tomorrow, December 20th, which is probably when everyone will be listening to this because we're recording this on the 19th. Directed by J.J. Abrams, story by George Lucas, music comprised by John Williams, and stars Daisy Ridley. We have John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, we have Mark Hamill.
The whole gang,
literally everybody from essentially the past two movies. We got a little bit of Harrison Ford as well. So that's pretty cool.
I tell you what, I wore the right shirt today.
Oh my gosh! Yes,
I was not expecting that.
I was not expecting that at all either. He just pops up, and I was like, okay. I'm like, if he's like a Force ghost, that would be a little weird. And I was like, I'm like, oh, it's just like a figment of Ben's imagination. But yeah,
no, I was talking about Lando.
Oh, of course, that's right. You were wearing a Lando shirt today.
I had a Lando polo on today, and he ended up being one of the very main characters, which was definitely a surprise. Yeah,
I'm really glad they brought him back. They pretty much brought back everyone that they could. I think J.J. Abrams did a phenomenal job with this. The Rotten Tomatoes score, as of right now, it is divided, as always, but
it's the opposite of The Last Jedi, basically.
It is the opposite of The Last Jedi. So the tomato meter for critics right now is at a 57%, and the audience score is sitting at an 88%. So yeah, this movie definitely has raised some heads, and I think a lot of the Last Jedi naysayers out there really enjoyed this film, and I can totally understand why. I enjoyed it as well. I think it's one of my favorites of the year, honestly, and quite possibly one of my favorite Star Wars movies to end this amazing saga. So I guess I'll just start with you really quick, Devin. What were your initial thoughts, I guess, coming out of the theater, since we literally just got back?
I think we were texting, and I said there's just a lot to digest there. There's so much going on. I think my initial feelings were that it was good but not great, and I have a few reasons as to why I believe that. But I definitely had a good time all throughout. It was a great spectacle. It always is. It was an event going to see this movie. The packed theater, everyone's cheering, and it was just a good time.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you there, Devin. I think I'm just a little bit more on the opposite. I thought it was phenomenal. It did feel, I will say, between Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker, now that we have the complete sequel trilogy, I will say, as much as I do like The Last Jedi, it does feel out of place in this trilogy.
That's just I think it's just the greater issue of having two directors
Yeah.
doing a trilogy. It never really made sense in the first place, and they kind of saw the issues unfold when they decided to go that route.
Right. Yeah. And definitely, you know, when I was watching this film, I was getting a lot of, you know, like it was like I was watching The Force Awakens again for like the first time. And, you know, it just felt like this picked up right after, or this would have been a part of, you know, if J.J. Abrams would have, you know, done the entire trilogy, then it would have been, if it would have felt like more of a complete story. And I do agree there, yeah, with Rian Johnson. I love Rian Johnson. I love his work that he did on Last Jedi, but I feel like they should have, you know, started with JJ, you know, since he already started this trilogy, and then have Rian Johnson do the next trilogy after the hiatus. I know Rian Johnson is actually getting a little bit of flack right now online. Again, surprise, surprise, saying that, you know, Star Wars fans need to be challenged when it comes to these films and not catered to, and that's something I actually do agree. That is one of my issues.
J.J. Abrams does not agree, apparently.
Right, yeah, that whole debacle. I mean, yeah, like, I mean, J.J. Abrams definitely played it a little bit safe with The Force Awakens, but he still put his own twist on it. I thought it was very, very good. It's definitely one of my top 5 Star Wars films. I think he's done a phenomenal job with The Rise of Skywalker and The Force Awakens. But like I said, I do agree with Rian Johnson there, because, you know, it's, yeah, like in this movie, it's very fan servicey, and that is exactly what people want, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Because like I said, for like the 5th time, like I really did enjoy it. I do wish that, I mean, I guess I'd rather have it this way instead of having it to where, you know, oh, you know, you have JJ for the first one, and you have Rian Johnson, then Rian Johnson finishing it out. It would have been interesting to see what, you know, a complete Rian Johnson trilogy for the sequel trilogy would have been, and it would have been really interesting to see for JJ's full vision as well, because I really wanted to know his, excuse me, his plans for the for his second movie, you know, moving forward, because this definitely felt like an apology letter, I guess, in a way, to the Last Jedi naysayers. But I don't know, man. So I guess you know, since we're talking about the movie, you know, Palpatine's back. You know, Ben Solo dies, Rey almost pretty much dies, but gets brought back to life in a way. I guess, like, I don't know, what were the things that you liked about the movie?
I loved the CGI. First of all, I thought everything looked amazing. Like, you can say that about every Star Wars, but this one, it just felt like it was all used so perfectly, along with the practical effects. And I think I have one of my new favorite characters in Babu Frick. He is amazing.
Yeah, Babu Frick was funny.
His voice was hilarious. I don't know what, like, just sounded so weird, but it was hilarious.
Yeah, and like, he was in the movie for a little bit, not for, like, you know, a super long amount of time, but he's
the quintessential parts. Like, he's the quintessential cute, like, Star Wars character that does stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. And then that new little droid that they had that looks like a blow dryer. I forgot the name of it, but
I think it was Dio.
Yeah, I think you're right. Dio. Yeah, but when it came to the parts that I liked, I really, really dug, like, the very beginning. You know, it starts off with, you know, the echoes of the past have, like, started to come back, and it's, you know, it's Palpatine all over again, and, you know, you find out about Rey's parents' lineage. One of the theories was that Rey is the granddaughter of Palpatine, which came true.
Rey Palpatine really rolls off the tongue.
I don't think it's like a bad, like, Rey Palpatine. It's like, okay, like, yeah, it does fall off the tongue, but then, you know, later on in the movie, which I actually, well, towards the very end, actually, I'm actually kind of like this a lot, when she, you know, she goes back to Tatooine and buries Luke and Leia's lightsaber between the two, and you know, the passenger comes by, and says, oh, oh, no one's been here for like, ages, centuries, or not centuries, but for a very long time. And she's asking, oh, like, what's your name? She's like, oh, I'm Ray. He's like, Ray what? And then I did like the nod where she views Luke and Leia more as her parents than her actual parents did. But even though her parents fought to protect her from Palpatine, because we first think that Palpatine wants her dead, but then you find out that Palpatine wanted to turn her to the dark side, and I thought she did. I almost thought she was going to. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, they have that little dark Ray show up with the double bladed lightsaber thingy.
Did you think that she was actually going to turn, or like obviously we saw that scene during like the last trailer, or during the D23 trailer, I should say. Did you actually think she was going to turn to the dark side at some point, or did you really think she was just going to stay with the light?
I obviously thought it was a possibility, but throughout the movie, I kind of like kept flipping back and forth. I never really figured out the ending completely, which is, I guess, is a good thing.
Yeah, that is true. I'm glad we weren't able to, it wasn't predictable. It does echo a little bit from The Last Jedi, with Ben dying and essentially redeeming himself, and saving Rey's life, which it's kind of what happened in in Return of the Jedi, just in a little different of a way.
Yeah. Before we get to that, I wanted to say, I think my favorite parts were pretty much every scene I was on. The first planet they go to, I don't remember what it was called, but the one that had like the festival going on.
Oh yeah, where they ran into, oh my gosh, Lando.
Yeah, I think all those scenes were my favorite, just because they were all so well done and they were all so cool. Like, even just seeing the stormtroopers with the jetpacks, it's such a simple idea, but it looks so cool when they jumped off the back.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet.
That chase scene was really cool. And then obviously the scene that we saw in the D23 trailer not D23, it was the Star Wars.
Like the first trailer with Rey and Kylo like going at it.
That's it. Oh, it worked so well, even though we like saw it was coming. And then her and Kylo battling to try to save Chewie, and then you see the lightning come out of Rey. You're like, oh, Palpatine, interesting.
Yeah, that actually did jump me out of my seat. I was like, whoa, what? And I was like, okay, maybe she's like tapping into like her dark side, or
it was kind of weird, because I thought that, like, I was just thinking, well, this is a badass moment, but then immediately they all start screaming like, no, Chewie, and it like hit me. I was like, oh no, that might be Chewie dying actually. So it not actually isn't a very exciting thing.
Yeah, and you could definitely see the remorse on Rey's face when she's like, I literally just killed one of my best friends. And she just feels so terrible about it. And it was just, and I actually thought Chewie was dead for like a hot second. And then, obviously maybe a few minutes later, they're like, oh, he's alive. And I thought to myself, I'm like, do they have, like, does JJ have the balls to kill off Chewie? I mean, obviously we get, the big three between Leia, Luke, and Han. They obviously all die. But some of the footage that was used for Princess Leia was stock footage. So it wasn't necessarily a, I guess you could say not a, how they do like the CGI,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I actually really like that a lot. A few issues that I did have towards the end with where it shows Luke and Leia as Force Ghosts. I really wish Ben would have been there, because he kind of just dies and then you never really see him again.
I know you wanted Anakin to show up too.
I really did, and I was like,
we only got his voice.
Only got his voice, and only got the Darth Vader voice as well. And I was like, man, I was hoping it was gonna be the whole Skywalker family, but I'm like, okay, towards the end, I'm like, no, that would have been really weird. But like that definitely, I mean, this film definitely echoes a little bit from the Return of the Jedi. We see the Ewoks for a hot second, which is pretty cool. If only for like maybe a minute, if that, maybe 30 seconds. Another thing is the Knights of Ren. I really wish that JJ would have at least used them.
Yeah, they had a really small part. throughout the whole movie.
Because, like, you know, I mean, Kylo's like pissed throughout the entire movie, and then out of nowhere they just pop up and they're like, "Oh, the Knights of Ren." And like, I thought they were going to play a bigger part in this because, you know, they're teased in Force Awakens. They're never, you know, mentioned in The Last Jedi, and then with Rise of Skywalker, like they're there, but we don't know who they are. You never really see their faces. We just know that it's pretty much Kylo's posse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then. The fight scenes that they were in were obviously pretty cool, but they just weren't that memorable.
Yeah, I wish it would have been a little bit more of a backstory as well. And then I think those are like the two minor things that I had between, you know, Ben. I mean, yeah, we get a little bit of Anakin's voice because, you know, no one's ever really gone. But other than that, I can't really think of any other like flaws that I really had. Those are like the two issues that I actually had with it. I guess another thing really quick is, you know, I really was interested in the relationship between, because did Finn never told Rey what he had to tell her, did he? I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, that was another thing, is, you know, they kind of hint or tease that, you know, Rey and Finn during The Force Awakens would, you know, have some kind of feelings for each other, and, you know, wherever those feelings may lead is where they lead. But I think you know, he tried to resurface that, but, you know, then you have Rey end up kissing Ben for like a hot second, and then he was like, "Peace out, I'm gone." I was like, yeah. Oh, well, Ben's is kind of done, but he really.
I think one of the overarching issues of this trilogy is the use of Finn throughout the three movies. Kind of feels like he just got jerked around through all three movies.
Yeah,
could have done better.
I agree. Yeah, because I mean, he definitely had a really good arc in Force Awakens. I think, you know, he's definitely in the spotlight in this one. I mean, he had a lot of screen time in The Last Jedi, but he just didn't do a lot.
Yeah, and then the stuff with Jana, I think her name is. She's the new character that was also a stormtrooper, I guess.
Yeah,
that felt pretty forced. I mean, she was a decent character, but I felt like they just threw her in to give Finn like a relationship.
Love. Yeah, I feel like it should have been Finn and Rey. To be completely honest with you, but Poe had a pretty nice arc over between all three movies.
Yeah, I really like Poe.
Yeah, so that was great. I mean, you know, C-3PO giving up his memory and then getting it back again, but that was all thanks to you know, Mr. R2D2. Wow, I cannot talk tonight. I do.
You want to pick up the $50 R2D2 container?
No, I did not want to pick that up. I was waiting in line, right? And I was like, oh, you know, like, how much are the tins? They're like, oh, it's like $6 each. It's like, oh, they're like, what do you want, the light or the dark? I was like, let me get that Kylo 10, boy. Hey. And then they're like, oh, look at this R2D2 thing that we have. But they only had like maybe 2 boxes of them. I'm like, oh, how much is it? They're like $50. I'm like,
if it was 20, I would have gotten it.
Yeah, if it was $20, sure. But like,
that thing did look cool.
Yeah, it did. I wanted to know how it worked between, you know, you had the drink on top and then the popcorn at the bottom. I was like, I'll probably never use this ever again if I ever bought it. But yeah, it is what it is.
So back to the movie at hand.
Yes, back to the movie at hand.
So you kind of went over the issues that you had that seemed pretty minor to you. I think I had 2 major issues to me that kind of hit right away. And the first one was I really don't know how I feel about the Kylo Ren change and arc. It just it felt too easy, I guess. And even after he switched over, he kind of just like didn't say much the rest of the movie. And he was just kind of like a husk walking around.
Yeah, he was like a silent hero, just, you know, marching through.
But I think it just felt like, because all that really happened was he got a message from Leia and he just like switched. It felt pretty simple. Like, it also felt like he could have done that earlier and stopped a lot of things.
Yeah, between his mother and, you know, his father, I guess you could say. And then, that was actually another thing with Leia. She kind of just dies.
Yeah.
And I mean,
and it was just to send a message, like, I guess,
to
'cause she had
him.
to use all her energy.
Yeah, I mean, like it was cool. Don't get me wrong, but you know, as soon as he died, she became one with the Force as well. We didn't really. I mean, I guess we kind of got like a hint that Leia was a Jedi as well. With within the last for the Last Jedi, when she brings herself back from the space wreckage, I was like, okay, she knows how to use the Force. But
did she try to communicate to Kylo in the other two movies? I don't remember if she did.
In the Last Jedi, her and Kylo somewhat shared a moment during the beginning of the film, where he has like a clear shot at like her cockpit. It was totally going to kill her, and then the conflict in him, and then he decides not to. They kind of go back and forth between the two characters. Like she's like looking out the window, and he's like staring down, and it looks like they're sharing a connection, but they don't speak.
I mean, I understand Leia probably saw like the light inside of him in order to like keep faith, but for him to flip that switch, it just felt off.
Yeah.
After killing his dad like so easily, like it meant nothing to him, and then he just flips a switch and then he cares.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, like between the conflict, you can see it's like he's like there's always a little bit of light within like the darkness, and it was pretty much the same. I wouldn't say the same arc as Darth Vader, but definitely like really echoes his ending, because he wanted to be so much like his grandfather, but he wasn't even able to, with the whole Force Ghost. Anakin never really came back as a Force Ghost. I think that would have been really nice to kind of, if Ben were to turn to the light, and then between all of his conflicts, Anakin comes to his aid, and explains to him that his uncle Luke saved him. But even with the original trilogy, it was kind of weird with like, one good deed just automatically gets you in with being one with the Force, and then essentially you can live forever within the Force. So I mean, even with the original trilogy, that is a bit, I wouldn't say hokey, just a bit like, okay, Darth Vader is like the baddest mofo in the entire galaxy. He's mowed down so many people, killed a lot of kids, and there's a lot of comics with his journey as actual Vader. And then the one thing that he does, he quote unquote defeats the Emperor, and then he becomes one with the Force because of one good deed. I thought that was kind of odd with the original trilogy, but it pretty much happens here too.
I also thought it was weird, the kiss that they had, Ben and Rey.
I mean, I always detected there was a little bit.
It felt like there wasn't, though, because of the whole thick Kylo scene, and then she's like, "Can you put some clothes on, please?"
Yeah.
It felt like there wasn't anything there, and then they just kind of kissed, and he died. It just felt kind of random.
Yeah, essentially, him giving up his life, because I mean, we even saw this in The Mandalorian. Baby Yoda.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say it's kind of a fun fact that it never happened before in Star Wars, and The Mandalorian shows that it's possible right before this comes out. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like they did that to kind of like cover themselves, but then again, it's probably. Like, I mean, even if you go through a lot of the lore, it's like you can't really find out like what is the extent to like a Sith or Jedi's power, because the only thing we really know is that, I mean, if you want,
there's no set limits on it.
Yeah,
I don't know why people try to do that.
Yeah, it's crazy. There was literally a guy I saw on Twitter, and he was like complaining with The Last Jedi how they destroyed all those fleets with their light speed, and he's like, that's not how light speed works. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot light speed's real, right? I was like,
non-fictional piece.
I'm like,
there.
Yeah, I'm like, stop making crap up. Like, it was just so annoying, but I digress. Either way,
that's the first thing I thought when I saw the flip of the switch for good old Ben boy,
thick boy.
The other one, it's very well could be recency bias, and and possibly in a year or two I could feel different. But a lot of the end felt very end gamey.
Oh, when the rest of the resistance shows up.
Yeah, that's the main one, and there's also a couple other ones. But yeah, that part, obviously that's a common trope to have the good guys show up at the end and help save the day. But just the way it was done, it felt like kind of a lesser version of what Endgame did, because we didn't really know any of those people except for Lando.
Yeah.
So it just felt like a weaker version of what Endgame pulled off. I didn't have the same emotions I had with Endgame, obviously. And then the other two things were when Rey and Palpatine were fighting, and then he says, "I am all the Sith." She says, "I am all the Jedi."
That was kind of like
Thanos and Iron Man.
Yeah, like I am inevitable. Then then I am Iron Man. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Definitely. And it actually, that is something that kind of like came through my mind at first. And I was like, oh, like, I mean, like, I was like, yeah, like it does seem kind of similar. I was like, oh, I feel like I've seen that before. But, I mean, I guess this is Disney.
And then the last thing I thought of was when she had both lightsabers. So it was kind of like Thor having both his hammers.
Oh, see, I didn't even think about that. I mean, I totally forgot. I was like, okay, I'm like, she's holding two blue lightsabers. I was like, Luke had his green lightsaber, but I forgot he lost it or it got destroyed, or I can't really remember. It's been like a month since I rewatched like the original trilogy. I kind of just watched Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, before, just to kind of refresh everything within my memory. But I do agree with you on that, and also with what it was Finn's, I guess, whatever the black girl's name,
Jana. I'm not sure.
Like she played a fine part. It was very minor. Like she had a lot of screen time, but it was only because she was following around with Poe. I mean, not Poe, excuse me, Finn.
Yeah.
I definitely thought that like
we also got to talk about how badass those horses in space were.
That actually was so pretty cool. Sweet. I didn't know.
Jam their
tusks or whatever they're called.
The speed, whatever.
Yeah, that was
whatever vehicles, and they're not driving them.
Yeah,
and the horses just come out.
That was pretty sweet. That was amazing. I really did like the between the Sith dagger and the Sith the Wayfinders, like that entire
classic MacGuffins.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's true. But the what was the Sith worlds? Not Essex.
It was a weird name. I'm definitely not gonna remember it.
It was pretty cool though. And like I really, with Palpatine, I think they did a really nice job, because he did look old and decrepit. It didn't look like he was, like, oh hi, like I'm here, and it's like, wow, you look exactly the same after Vader threw you over that whole like banister, and then
it does make sense that he's been pulling the strings this whole time.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to talk about with Snoke, saying that he's the one who created Snoke in order to get everyone.
Snoke was just a puppet, basically.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's fine, because it's kind of switched in the original trilogy, because you don't find out about Palpatine or the Emperor until Empire Strikes Back, and even then you really don't know the limits of his abilities. And it's like, okay, and then that's totally like a Sith to use someone else to to gain whatever they're trying to accomplish. So I was like, okay, yeah, with Snoke, that's totally fine. So I guess, like, how did you feel about Rey being a Palpatine and her being the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine?
I'm glad it didn't get spoiled, because it did catch me off guard.
It did for me, but I remember watching a video a few weeks back, and that was one of the theories that they came up with, that one of them was that Rey was a clone of Anakin. That's why she was, so I guess within the Force Awakens, when it came to Anakin's lightsaber, that's why she was so drawn to it. And I was like, oh, that would have been pretty cool. But I did like, okay, it's grandkids versus grandkids in this movie, which it's very Star Wars. And I guess now that I really think of it, I really like, I mean, Rey, yes, she did technically come from nothing. In a way, it was just it's not like her parents were anyone important, which is still pretty cool.
I kind of liked it that way.
Yeah.
I've said in the past that I don't really like how Star Wars has to make everyone related. I understand it's kind of like what they do, but I don't think it has to happen every time.
Right. Yeah, and
I kind of liked it being Palpatine. It was just kind of a nice twist.
Ray Palpatine. Yeah. And yeah, because I was like, oh, like, that'd be interesting. She ends up being his granddaughter. And like, I guess so I kind of just blocked it from my mind. But like, I was still shocked. I was like, holy crap, like that came true. Like, wow, that's awesome. So it wasn't like a letdown for me in any means. But it was, it's kind of like she always knew who her parents were. But like you can really see the struggle between Rey in this film as well. I mean, we always knew that there was struggle within Kylo Ren, but this is definitely a film that tested Rey's beliefs and what she's actually fighting for, because she literally could have turned to the dark side like so quick and just.
She almost had to.
I mean, I thought that they were gonna kind of switch it. It's like, okay, like it's called the Rise of Skywalker. I mean, we know that the reason why now, but I thought it was dealing more with Ben, where they essentially swap sides, where Rey starts to feel the pain and the sorrow and the anger that comes with like coming from nothing and her finding out the truth about who she is. And then, Kylo having to either kill her, but I
thought he was going to have to kill Palpatine and then have the evil go into him, and then Rey would have to kill Kylo. Well,
I mean, technically she did kill Kylo for like a hot second when they were battling on the Death Star.
I always hate when the good guys save the bad guys.
Yeah, and I was like, oh wow, is this really like the end of like Kylo already, and then it's just going to go on? But obviously they are going to be making another trilogy, but after this they did say they are going on a bit of a hiatus for about, I think it's like 3 to 4 years. I think it honestly needs to be around 5 years, just because I mean, we're already getting Ben Kenobi, season 2 of The Mandalorian, and
yeah, we have Disney Plus to hold us over, which is nice.
Yeah, which is totally fine. I think we definitely need a break from the major Star Wars, whatever episode 10, what they could have gone on with. And actually, I was like, well, maybe they should have just put this on 10, and then 10 should have just been like, the grand finale, everyone coming together and what have you. So have like, this trilogy, and then have like one more. But not have that for a few years. But I mean, it is what it is. I really did enjoy everyone's performance with this, and with Star Wars coming to a close, reading up on a few of my Star Wars trivia and facts that some of these characters in the Rise of Skywalker could possibly show up as either cameos or other side characters within the new trilogy, but obviously it wouldn't be I mean, maybe Rey would be there, possibly, because she has a really nice arc, and I really think that the Rise of Skywalker, between all 9 films, it actually does it is a satisfying ending, because it has always been Palpatine pulling the strings.
I was actually gonna say, I think one of my biggest takeaways from this movie and the entire trilogy is how perfect Rey and Daisy Ridley were made as choices.
Yeah,
she's just like the ultimate Star Wars character to me.
She really is.
She's so unique, and you could just tell from the Force Awakens how special she was, and it came full circle.
Yeah, and like as I said on our predictions podcast, when I first saw the Force Awakens, I was just like instantly in love with her. I was just like, wow, she's charismatic. She's just amazing. She really fits within the Star Wars universe. She's not just some random, girl that they meet on an adventure. She is the main character, and the mysterious past that she has, and it's kind of like as she gets older, she starts remembering a few things here or there. But I really, I guess another small thing would be, with Palpatine, and it is possible Palpatine had children before he became, old and decrepit, because I mean the same thing happened with Darth Vader. before his transformation as well. So I really do wish that we would have gotten maybe a little bit more Force Ghosts, maybe like another Yoda Force Ghost, but I don't know. Like I said, this film is it's fan base, it's very fan base heavy, but so is Endgame, and it turned out to be fantastic. And regardless of the tomato meter for the critics, I think this movie is going to be doing very, very well. It's a lot of people say, oh, the critics hated it, it must mean it's really, really good. But it's, I think that this film would shut up a lot of the toxic Star Wars people out there. But then again, there's always going to be toxic Star Wars fans out there, no matter how you slice it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy.
Speaking of toxic people in general, I wanted to touch on. There's been a lot of drama surrounding the kissing scene between the two females at the end.
Oh yeah, that was God, that happened for like what?
Yeah,
5 seconds?
I saw that a couple days before the movie came out, and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then I was waiting for it to happen, and I was like, oh, that's it. That's why are people freaking out. So I wanted to give props to this movie for doing it that way, because I think that's the perfect way to incorporate and have representation for people that are gay, because they made it a normal thing. They didn't like zoom in on the kiss. They didn't make people like be shocked and react. They normalized it, which is exactly what you have to do to make people realize that it's a normal thing to have those feelings.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It wasn't like in your face. It happened for.
They didn't make it a spectacle. They just made it a normal thing, because that's exactly what it is. It's a normal thing.
Yeah, the resistance won, and everyone was celebrating. They're happy to see their loved ones, and I believe one of the girl, the one she had kind of like a longer nose. I believe that she was in The Last Jedi. I can't remember if she was in The Force Awakens, but I definitely remember her in The Last Jedi. And I mean, it's a big universe, so it's pretty normal that something like this would happen. It just I guess as normal as between the kiss between Kylo and Daisy, because I always do feel like something was a little bit there, because they were connected, not just in the sense of Snoke bridging their minds, but it just seemed like they had. I mean, with them being essentially the last two Jedi, the last two lightsaber wielders, they definitely have more of a connection towards each other, because everyone else is like, oh, like there's stories of the Force and the Sith, and they say it in Force Awakens, it's true, all of it, the Jedi, the Sith, it's real, all of it's real. And Poe pretty much not Poe, why do I keep saying Poe? Finn pretty much confirms this, and I think he's talking to that other character who they magically found out that they were both captive of the First Order, or now it should be the Final Order, just renamed, but still up to their same old shenanigans. But yeah, man, I did want to touch on Oscar, because I know we've been talking about Daisy and John Boyega for a while. So what did you think of Poe's arc within this movie, especially with his somewhat love interest? I forgot what her name was, but she seemed like a pretty interesting character.
Zori,
played
by Kerry Russell.
Yeah, I saw her she was on Jimmy Kimmel's late night show a few nights ago with the rest of the cast, and I was kind of interested to see who she was playing. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, she's playing. She had a pretty cool get up though. I liked it.
Yeah, I've always liked Poe. I know some people didn't like him, but I just think he's perfect as he is. He's just like the guy who takes charge and does cool stuff. Kind of like Han Solo light in a way. Yeah,
I would definitely agree. I kind of like him a little bit more, just because I don't know. I feel like we got a little bit more time with Poe throughout their entire trilogy. I mean, yeah, Han was always there. And it's like, oh, I'm this bad guy, or not a bad guy. I'm a bounty hunter, whatever. I don't like getting close to people. But yeah, I mean,
that's the thing about Poe. He's always been on the good side.
Yeah, and even with this movie, it's between the between
He's a spice runner.
yeah, what is a spice runner? I was gonna ask.
I have no idea.
They were like spice runner, and he was like, "I'm sorry, weren't you part of the
stormtrooper?"
Yes,
Yeah.
weren't you a scavenger? I thought that was funny.
I can go all day.
That was really
I think Poe definitely had a few of the funnier moments in the movie. I like towards the end when he kind of like gives a face to Zori, and she's like, "Nope," and he just like shrugs it off.
Yeah, he tries to kiss her again. He's like, "All right, okay, whatever. It's cool. It's cool. It is what it is, you know. Oh well." But yeah, I really did like how they, how JJ put these three together between Rey, Finn, and Poe, because it definitely felt like a more complete story with that. But like I said, I really do wish that JJ would have done this entire trilogy, and I think that's one thing that Disney needs to take away. It's like, from all this, if you're going to do a trilogy, you need to hire one director, and that's it.
Yeah,
going back and forth. Like I said, as much as I do love The Last Jedi, I really, really love it. It is something new, it's something different. And like I said, Rian Johnson was completely right. Star Wars fans need to be challenged, need to do something new, something different, not just cater to and everything that, everything that they're used to, just more catered and, fan servicey, which, like, again, it's totally fine. It's just, moving forward, if Rian Johnson gets his whole trilogy, great, cool. That means we're getting some new Star Wars stuff. We're done with Luke. We're done with Leia. We're done with, thank God, just we're done with all of that. It was a great arc, and even with Rey dying, like I felt a little something because it happened so sudden, and at first I thought she was just like tired or kind of just overall just a little weary of what just happened. But I was like, oh, she's like dead, and I was like actually tearing up a little bit there for a second. But was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
I think we got it all. Are you ready to give your score?
Yeah, man. I'm ready to give my score. I'm ready. What would you give this the Star Wars Rise of Skywalker out of 100?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I had two like semi-major issues in my mind, being Kylo Ren's arc and also how endgame it felt. I obviously don't think it was as bad as the critics think, but I don't think it was quite as good as the audience score is giving. I'm gonna go somewhere in the middle. I'm gonna go with an 80.
Okay, all right.
So good, but not great.
Right. Yeah, like I said before, the two minor things I had, I wish that they would have either mourned over Ben giving his life to save Rey. Obviously she shows gratification between all that, but I really wish they would have expanded out a little bit more. And then I really wish that we would have got more of the Knights of Ren, because literally they were kind of just there. And they didn't really talk. We didn't know who they were. Everyone was so interested to see who they were in The Force Awakens, because we show them in the flashbacks where the rest of the Jedi that Luke was training but turned to the dark side. Who were they? That's the only thing I wish we would have gotten. There was no post-credit scene, no mid-credit scene whatsoever. I Googled that while I was sitting there because I knew that's why everyone else was sitting around and waiting after the credits.
I always look it up on IMDb after a movie.
Yeah. But yeah, those are my two, I guess you could say minor flaws, but I'm actually going to go a little bit more higher than the audience. Just by two, I'm going to give it a solid 90 out of 100. With this being the last of like this huge saga, and it's so hard to wrap up a saga as big as this, because this is one of the the world's biggest properties next to Lord of the Rings. I mean, even Pokemon in general, that's huge. I think that's like the biggest franchise in the world. But Star Wars, movie wise, it's just nothing has been able to touch it. You have your Trekkies, people who love Star Trek, but there's something about Star Wars that I think that really speaks volumes to everyone. And no matter what Star Wars film that you watch, whether either be Rogue One or Solo Star Wars story, there's always something for someone who is a Star Wars fan. If you like Star Wars, the Clone Wars, the animated series more than the movies, and that's totally fine, because you know what, I love it too. If you love The Mandalorian, it's more of a space western. A lot of shit's hitting the fan there, especially with this past episode that we've gotten. It's definitely, there's like 1 or 2 episodes
One
left?
more.
I think 1. My gosh, it's gonna be insane. But there's always there's something for everyone when it comes to Star Wars. So I'm definitely I'm sticking with my 90 out of 100. This honestly is definitely going to be ranking within my top 5 Star Wars films. It may come in between my top 3 as well. On Letterboxd. So yeah, 90 out of 100. I love the movie. It didn't feel out of place. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel rushed. It was exactly what it needed to be. I do wish that J.J. Abrams would have taken a little bit more of a risk, but that is okay. We're gonna get more Star Wars films within the years to come. So I believe that actually concludes our spoiler-heavy review of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. And before we close out here today, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Film Optix, and Optix is spelled Optix. And as always, Devin, thank you for coming on with me to review all these great movies. The year's coming to a close. We got a few more to go, but we can make it for sure. Absolutely.
We did it.
We did it. Yeah. We now we can finally go on Twitter without worrying about running into a spoiler, because I was so afraid the entire week I was going to run into something. I swear, Devin, I was very afraid. I didn't want anything to wow, that was okay, or oh yeah, I saw that online, wherever, even like you said with even with the theories that we've gotten, especially with Rey being the granddaughter of Palpatine, it was still a shock to me, because I didn't think it was gonna be true at first. So I was like, maybe it's just she's related to someone else, or she just doesn't come from anywhere. But between that, and also you can listen to this review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and Anchor as well. We're going to be taking a bit of a break for next week, since it is the holidays. We want everyone to enjoy Christmas or whatever holiday that you do celebrate with your family. So between our spoiler heavy review and our non-spoiler review of Star Wars, those would be the last 2 reviews that we'll be putting up until after the new year, I'm assuming. And we'll kind of get into our best of the decades podcast, and as well as it is also award season. We have a few other reviews coming out between Uncut Gems and maybe Little Women, if I can get Devin to see it, but I don't know. He might, only for Florence Pugh, but we shall see. And
There's a lot coming out.
And Bombshell as well. They came out this
And
weekend.
I haven't seen 1917 yet.
Yeah, that's right. And don't forget Cats.
No.
Yeah, I think we can skip on the Cats, honestly. It's rough. I mean, I almost went to go see it. I had a free screen or 2, and I was like, you know what? Is this even worth it? Probably not. So it is what it is. But that concludes today's spoiler heavy review of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Peace.